The ring was cold when Harper placed it into her father's hand. "Dad," she whispered carefully, "why was another man's ring under Mom's bed?" And in that single moment, Gavin Mercer realized the most dangerous lies were never the loud ones. They were the quiet lies, sitting inside ordinary homes, waiting for a child, innocent enough, to uncover them. Rain slid slowly down the massive kitchen windows of the Mercer house, blurring the gray Seattle skyline beyond the lake. The morning smelled faintly of espresso and toasted sourdough, the kind of expensive domestic calm Elise Mercer had spent years perfecting for Instagram photographs and dinner guests. Everything looked beautiful. That was the problem. Gavin Mercer sat at the Marble Island in a navy dress shirt, skimming through acquisition documents on his iPad while half listening to CNBC from the television mounted in the family room. At 42, Gavin had mastered the art of compartmentalization. Corporate litigation demanded it. Marriage apparently demanded even more. Upstairs, Harper's footsteps echoed down the hallway. Fast, then slower, then hesitant. "Dad?" Gavin looked up immediately. Harper stood at the edge of the kitchen, clutching something in her small palm. Her dark blonde hair was still messy from sleep, and she wore one of Gavin's old college hoodies that nearly swallowed her whole. "What's wrong?" he asked softly. She walked closer without answering. Then she opened her hand. A platinum ring rested against her skin. Heavy, masculine, expensive, not his. Gavin stared at it for 2 full seconds before his brain caught up with reality. His wedding band was still on his finger. "Where did you find that?" Harper shrugged uneasily. "On Mom's bed." The kitchen suddenly felt airless. Behind him, the espresso machine hissed loudly, startling him harder than it should have. "You sure?" Gavin asked. "Yeah." Harper frowned. "I was looking for Mochi, the cat. Mom wasn't in there?" "No." Harper tilted her head. "Dad, it's not yours, right?" Children always ask the question adults spend entire marriages avoiding. Gavin forced a smile that barely held together. "No, sweetheart," he said carefully. "It's not mine." At that exact moment, Elise entered the kitchen. She wore cream silk trousers and a fitted black turtleneck, despite it being barely 7:30 in the morning. Her phone was in one hand, coffee in the other. Effortlessly elegant, controlled, the kind of woman strangers trusted instantly. "What's not yours?" she asked. Harper turned innocently. "This ring." For the first time in nearly 15 years of marriage, Gavin saw his wife freeze. Not dramatically, not obviously, just enough. A flicker, a delayed breath, a microscopic hesitation most people would never notice. But trial lawyers were trained to notice hesitation. Elise recovered quickly, too quickly. "Oh," she laughed softly. "That." Gavin said nothing. Elise walked over and picked up the ring with graceful fingers. "One of my clients left it in a prop box after a photo shoot," she explained casually. "I must have tossed it in the bedroom and forgotten." Harper accepted the explanation immediately. Children wanted safety more than truth, but Gavin kept staring at his wife. Because Elise was lying. He knew it instinctively, not because of the ring itself, because of the look in her eye. People told lies with words, but betrayal lived in timing. "Can I have pancakes?" Harper asked, already emotionally moving on. Elise smiled warmly. "Only if you're ready for school on time." Harper groaned and disappeared upstairs. The moment her footsteps vanished, silence settled over the kitchen like smoke. Elise placed the ring into her pocket. "You're staring at me," she said lightly. "You look nervous." I looked surprised. You froze. She gave him an amused smile. Gavin, it's 7 in the morning. I haven't even had coffee. But she had. He could smell it. Small lie. Teeny. Pointless. Yet somehow worse because of that. Gavin leaned back slowly in his chair. What client? What? You say a client left it. Elena Foster. The answer came immediately. Too immediately. We did a luxury bridal campaign last month. Another thing Gavin noticed. Alice rarely answered direct questions that fast unless she'd prepared for them. You kept another man's ring under our bed for a month? Her jaw tightened slightly. It was a prop. Under your bed. Oh my God. She exhaled sharply. Do you hear yourself right now? There it was. Deflection. Not anger. Not confusion. Redirection. Gavin knew the rhythm because he used it himself in courtrooms every day. You think I'm cheating on you because Harper found jewelry? Alice asked. No, he replied quietly. He paused. I think you're acting strange because Harper found jewelry. A flicker crossed her face again, this time colder, more dangerous. You're exhausted, Alice said. You've been working non-stop for weeks, and you've been traveling non-stop for months. Her eyes hardened almost invisibly. Is that what this is about? Gavin studied her in silence. There had been changes lately, teeny ones. Alice guarding her phone. New lingerie she never wore around him. More networking dinners. Less eye contact during conversations. And something else. Distance. Not physical distance. Emotional absence. Like she had already left parts of herself somewhere else. You know what? Alice grabbed her coffee again. I'm not doing this before work. Doing what? This paranoid interrogation? I asked 2 questions. You imply more. Maybe because your answers don't feel real. That landed harder than he intended. Alice looked away first. Outside. Rain hammered harder against the windows. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Alice sighed quietly. You want the truth? She asked. Gavin felt his chest tighten. Yes, I'm tired. Her voice softened. Tired of every conversation between us feeling transactional. Tired of your job owning every room you walk into. Tired of feeling examined instead of loved. Gavin blinked. The shift caught him off guard. Not because she was emotional, because she was skilled. Alice always knew how to redirect guilt. Suddenly, he was defending himself instead. You think this is my fault? I think marriages get lonely before they get broken. A dangerous sentence. Not a confession, but not innocent either. Upstairs, Harper's bedroom door slammed shut. Reality returned instantly. Their daughter was in the house, listening, feeling, absorbing. Gavin lowered his voice. Are you unhappy? Alice hesitated. This time the silence was real. I don't know anymore. She admitted quietly. That hurt more than denial. His phone buzzed on the counter, but he ignored it. Is there someone else? He asked directly. Alice stared at him, long enough to matter. Then finally, no. The answer came calmly, smoothly, beautifully, and Gavin believed with sudden terrifying certainty that his wife had learned how to lie without blinking. Later that morning, after Alice left for downtown Seattle and Harper boarded the school shuttle, Gavin remained alone in the kitchen. The house was silent, except for rain. He stared at the empty counter where the ring had rested. Then he opened his laptop, not to work, to search, because deep down something inside him had already shifted. Trust did not collapse all at once. It cracked quietly, like eyes beneath someone standing too confidently on top of it. And Gavin Mercer had just heard the first fracture. 3 days after Harper found the ring, Gavin stopped sleeping properly, not completely, just enough to notice everything. The sounds inside the Mercer house had changed. Elise's footsteps at night, the soft vibration of her phone against the marble bathroom counter, closet doors opening after midnight, whispered calls taken downstairs near the wine cellar where acoustic swallow voices hold. Tiny thing, but marriages did not collapse from one catastrophic moment. They eroded from patterns people stopped questioning. Seattle entered its wettest week of October, wrapping the city in cold fog and silver rain. From the outside, the Mercer family still looked immaculate. Elise continued posting curated glimpses of luxury domestic life to Instagram fresh peonies in crystal vases, Harper painting pumpkins in cashmere pajamas, candlelit dinners that Gavin barely touched. Thousands of people liked the illusion. Gavin studied it like evidence. One Thursday evening, he sat alone in his office downtown watching security footage from his own building instead of preparing for trial. Not because he suspected Elise was there, because he needed distraction from thinking about her. His assistant knocked lightly. "You heading home soon?" Gavin looked up. Maya Chen stood in the doorway holding a folder against her chest, mid-30s, razor sharp, the only person in the firm who occasionally spoke to him like a human being instead of a billing machine. Eventually, he answered, "You've said that for 4 hours." He rubbed his eyes. "Bad việc." Maya studied him carefully. "You okay?" The truthful answer surprised him because it arrived instantly. "No." But he smiled anyway. "I'm fine." Another lie added to the pile. Maya didn't push. "You missed dinner with the client," she said instead. "I forgot." "You never forget things." That lie lingered after she left. Because she was right. Gavin remembered details for a living. Contract clauses, jury reaction, timeline. So why had he ignored his own marriage unraveling in front of him? He arrived home after 9:30. The house glowed warmly against the rain-dark street. Through the front windows, he could see Harper asleep on the couch beneath a blanket, television still flickering softly. Elise sat nearby, scrolling through her phone. She didn't notice him immediately, and for one terrible second, Gavin saw her smile at something on the screen. Not politely, not casually, intimately. The kind of smile people wore when emotionally undressing for someone else. Then she looked up, and it vanished. "You're late," she said calmly, locking the phone screen. "You're awake. So, are you?" He removed his coat slowly. "Harper waited for you." Guilt punched through him immediately. She should have gone upstairs. "She wanted to watch a baking show with you." Gavin glanced toward his daughter, sleeping under the blanket. One hand still clutched the remote. Something inside him tightened painfully. "I'll carry her up." Alice nodded. But as he bent carefully to lift Harper, her sleepy voice mumbled against his shoulder. "Did you and Mom stop loving each other?" The room froze. Gavin looked toward Elise. She looked away first. "Why would you ask that?" he whispered. Harper barely opened her eyes. "You don't laugh anymore." Children notice absences adults thought were invisible. Gavin carried her upstairs without another word. Later, near midnight, he woke to an empty bed. The bathroom light was off. The hallway silent. Then he heard it, a whisper downstairs. He moved quietly through the dark hallway until he reached the staircase overlooking the living room below. Ellie stood near the kitchen windows in silk pajamas, speaking softly into her phone. No, he doesn't know. Silence. A pause. Then a quiet laugh. Low. Private. Intimate. Gavin's pulse slow instead of quickening. Courtroom instinct. Emotion made people careless. Calmness revealed truth. Ellie said. Her body jerked violently. She turned instantly, nearly dropping the phone. Oh my God, she snapped. You scared me. Gavin descended the stairs slowly. Who were you talking to? My sister. At midnight. She's in London. Another immediate answer. Too clean. What's wrong with you lately? Elise asked sharply. What's wrong with me? You keep watching me. Because you keep hiding things. But he didn't say it aloud. Instead, you said he doesn't know. Her expression flickered. I was talking about Harper's Christmas gift. 3 months early? You're being ridiculous. There it was again. Not denial. Attack. Gavin leaned against the kitchen island. Unlock your phone. Elise stared at him. No. Why not? Because this marriage does not survive if we start policing each other. Interesting choice of words. Not I have nothing to hide. Not you're crazy. Just strategy. Defense. You're hiding something, he said quietly. And you're looking for reasons to believe that. Are you cheating on me? The question landed heavily between them. This time, Elise looked genuinely angry. You know what's insulting? She whispered. That after 15 years together, you think I'm capable of that? Then prove I'm wrong. I don't owe you surveillance access to my life. The irony almost made him laugh. Marriage had once meant shared everything. Now she spoke like opposing counsel. Gavin held her gaze. You already left this marriage emotionally, he said softly. Didn't you? For the first time, pain crossed Elise's face. Real pain. But whether it came from guilt or resentment, he could no longer tell. You abandoned us first, she whispered. That hit harder than accusation, because part of him feared she believed it. Years of late nights, canceled vacation, missed school recitals, corporate mergers over anniversaries. He had justified everything as sacrifice for their future. Maybe Elise experienced it as disappearance. You could tell me you were unhappy. I treat. When you stopped hearing me, silence swallowed the kitchen. Rain battered the windows harder. Finally, Elise moved past him toward the staircase. I'm going to bed. Who is he? She stopped. Only for a second, but long enough. Then she continued upstairs without answering. Gavin remained alone in the dark kitchen for nearly 20 minutes, thinking, replaying, analyzing. Lawyers built entire careers on behavioral patterns, and Elise was behaving like someone protecting an active secret. The next morning, Gavin started documenting everything, not dramatically, quietly, like building a legal case. Dates of business trips, credit card charges, receipts, phone behavior, change in routine. At work, between client meetings, he found himself opening airline records instead of litigation briefs. Portland, San Francisco, Chicago, too frequent, too short. One hotel reservation in Napa made his stomach turn cold. Single king suite, 2 guests checked into the spa package. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. But coincidences stopped feeling innocent once trust cracked. That afternoon, Harper sat at the kitchen island doing homework while Elise prepared dinner. For several minutes, the atmosphere almost resembled normal life. Then Harper looked up suddenly. Mom? Yes, baby? Why do you smile at your phone more than at Dad now? The knife stopped moving against the cutting board. Gavin slowly looked toward his wife. Elise forced a small laugh. "Harper, that's rude." "I didn't mean rude." Harper frowned. "I just noticed." Gavin watched panic flash behind Elise's eyes. Children, again, always accidentally walking into the truth adults desperately avoided. "Elise," Gavin said quietly, "answer her." She looked at him sharply. "You don't get to turn our daughter into part of this." "Part of what?" "This paranoid fantasy." Harper shrank slightly in her chair. Gavin immediately softened his tone. "No one angry, sweetheart, but someone were," Ellie said. Not because Harper asked the question, because it was accurate. That night, Gavin sat alone in his office at home, reviewing bank statements while the house slept upstairs. At 1:14 a.m., Alice's phone buzzed on the desk beside the couch, where she'd accidentally left it charging. A message preview lit the screen. "I miss you already." No name, just a number. But beneath it appeared a photo notification. Before the screen darkened again, Gavin saw enough. A man's hand, a whiskey glass, Paris hotel, lighting, and Elise's reflection in the mirror behind him. Gavin stared at the black screen for a long time. His breathing remained calm, controlled, almost frighteningly calm, because the worst part was no longer uncertainty. It was realization. The affair was real, and somewhere inside the ruins of his marriage, Gavin Mercer understood something dangerous. He was no longer trying to save the relationship. He was trying to uncover how deep the betrayal truly went. The first time Gavin Mercer saw Lucas Hale's face, it was on Instagram, not on Elise's account, on someone else's. A venture capital fundraiser in downtown Seattle. Dim lighting, expensive cocktails, smiling people, pretending ambition and morality could coexist in the same room. And there, standing slightly behind Elise, in the background of a photograph, was a man Gavin had never noticed before. Tall, dark-haired, perfect teeth, one hand resting casually against the small of Elise's back. Too familiar, too comfortable. Gavin zoomed in until the image blurred. The timestamp on the post was 16 months old. 16 months. He sat motionless in his office at home while rain tapped softly against the windows. The glow from his monitor illuminated stacks of legal files he had completely stopped caring about. The man's name was tagged beneath the photo. Lucas Hale. Gavin clicked the profile. Founder, investor, Forbes 40 under 40, public speaker, tech entrepreneur, 40,000 followers, clean photographs, calculated charm, the kind of man modern America rewarded instantly. Every image looked curated for envy. Private jets, wine tasting in Napa, luxury resorts in Santorini, panels about innovation and disruption, and buried carefully between business posts and conference appearances. Ellie said, not directly, never obviously, but present. A reflection beside him in restaurant mirrors, a feminine hand holding a champagne glass across dinner tables. Seattle skyline photographs taken from angles Gavin recognized intimately because they overlooked places Elise used to bring him. The affair had fingerprints everywhere once he knew where to look. Gavin leaned back slowly in his chair. His chest did not tighten anymore. That frightened him, because rage at least felt alive. This felt clinical, autopsy-like, as if he were dissecting the corpse of his own marriage. Downstairs, Harper laughed softly at something on television. The sound nearly broke him. He opened another browser tab. Lucas Hale net worth. Lucas Hale company investors. Lucas Hale relationship status. Nothing public. careful man, professional man. Then Gavin found something else, an interview podcast from nearly 2 years earlier. He pressed play. Lucas' voice filled the office smoothly, confident, warm, dangerous. The biggest mistake people make, Lucas said during the interview, is staying loyal to lives that no longer make them feel alive. Gavin stared at the screen, then slowly skipped forward. At some point, Lucas continued, laughing softly. You realize emotional connection matters more than social obligation. The interview date made Gavin's stomach turn. It was recorded 3 weeks before Elise suddenly began traveling more for work. Coincidence no longer existed. Not anymore. He reached for the legal pad and wrote one sentence. When did my wife emotionally leave this marriage? Not physically, emotionally. Because now he understood something horrifying. The affair had not started in hotel room. It started in conversations. Attention. Validation. Share complaints whispered late at night. By the time people crossed physical line, betrayal had usually been living inside them for months, maybe years. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Dad, Harper stood in the doorway holding her math workbook. You busy? Gavin closed the laptop immediately. Never too busy for you. She walked inside slowly. Mom says you've been working too much again. Your mom say a lot of things. The bitterness slipped out before he could stop it. Harper noticed. Children always notice. You mad at her? She asked quietly. Gavin forced himself to breathe before answering. No, Lee, I'm confused, he corrected gently. Harper nodded like that made sense. Then she climbed onto the couch beside him. When people get divorced, she asked carefully, do they still love each other a little? The question hit him harder than discovering the affair. Because children only ask questions they were already emotionally preparing for. Gavin stared ahead silently for several seconds. Sometimes, he said finally, sometimes people love each other but hurt each other too much to stay. Harper absorbed that quietly. Did mom hurt you? He looked down at his daughter and realized he could not protect her from reality forever. But neither could he poison her against her mother. Not yet. She made some choices I don't understand. Harper leaned against his shoulder. Mom cried in the bathroom now. Gavin froze. When? At night. Harper shrugged sadly. I heard her. That complicated everything. Because truly cruel people rarely cry alone. Meaning, Alice was either guilty or trapped inside consequences she no longer knew how to escape. Maybe both. Later that evening, Alice returned from downtown carrying shopping bags and exhaustion. The house smelled like rosemary chicken and garlic bread Gavin had cooked for the first time in months because he needed something physical to focus on besides suspicion. Elise stopped when she saw the table set. You cook? Apparently, I still remember how. The comment landed sharply. Elise ignored it. During dinner, Harper carried most of the conversation while Gavin watched his wife carefully. Now that he knew Lucas existed, he saw changes everywhere. The way Elise checked her phone face down beside her wine glass, the delayed smiles, the emotional distraction. Even guilt had texture once you recognize it. You're quiet, Elise said finally. So are you. That's usually what happens when someone spends a week interrogating their spouse. Harper looked between them nervously. Can we not fight tonight? Instant silence. Gavin looked at his daughter's frightened expression and felt shame flood him. We're not fighting, he said softly. Elise lowered her eye. Yes, we are. The honesty startled everyone at the table. especially because it was the first truthful thing she'd said in days. After Harper went upstairs, Elise remained in the kitchen rinsing wine glasses while Gavin sat nearby pretending to read emails. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Elise asked quietly, "Do you still love me?" The question felt absurd now, not because he didn't, because love had become irrelevant beside truth. "I don't know what version of you I'm loving anymore," he answered honestly. Elise stopped moving. "That's cruel." "No," Gavin said calmly. "Cruel is making someone question their entire reality." She turned toward him slowly. For one brief second, he thought she might confess. Instead, she asked, "Have you ever considered maybe you stopped seeing me long before someone else did?" There it was. Not denial, not innocence, justification. Gavin stood slowly from the table. "Who is Lucas Hale?" The wine glass slipped from Elise's hand. It shattered violently against the sink. Silence. Absolute silence. Gavin watched the color drain from her face. "How do you know that name?" "Because your affair stopped being invisible the moment I started paying attention." But he answered differently. "I asked a question." Elise looked terrified now. Not offended, not angry, terrified, which meant the truth was finally standing in the room with them. "He's an investor," she whispered carefully. "In what?" "My company." "How long have you known him?" "A while." "How long?" "About 2 years." 2 years. The number echoed through Gavin's skull like impact trauma. 2 years of lives, vacations, anniversaries, family photographs, Christmas morning. 2 years. "Did you sleep with him?" Alice closed her eyes. Not denial, not outrage, just exhaustion. "Gavin, did you sleep with him?" When she opened her eyes again, tears had formed there, but not fast enough, meaning they arrived after calculation. "Yes." The word entered the room quietly, almost gently, and still destroyed everything. Gavin felt strangely detached from his own body, like he was watching another man's life collapse from across the street. "How long?" Ellie swallowed hard. "A year, a year," he repeated, "but emotionally longer, much longer." He could feel it now. Every distant glance, every lonely dinner, every moment Elise had already belonged emotionally to someone else while still sharing his bed. "Do you love him?" Gavin asked. The question finally broke her. Tears spilled instantly. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "That's not an answer." Elise covered her face. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Gavin saw genuine shame consume her. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. That hurt more than if she'd said yes, because confusion meant she had allowed herself to emotionally live in two worlds at once. One safe, one exciting, one loyal, one selfish, and somewhere between them, she destroyed her family. Gavin stepped backward slowly, suddenly unable to stand near her. "Did everyone know?" he asked quietly. "What?" "Your friends, your co-workers? Were we the pathetic couple everyone pitied while you play house with another man?" "No." But she answered too slowly, meaning some people absolutely knew. Humiliation burned colder than anger. Gavin nodded once, then walked toward the staircase. "Elise." He stopped without turning around. "What?" Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry." Finally, the truth. But it arrived far too late, because upstairs, asleep beneath fairy lights and stuffed animals, their daughters still believed families could survive honesty. and downstairs, Gavin Mercer had just realized the betrayal began long before the affair ever touched a bed. It began the moment his wife started giving another man the parts of herself she no longer brought home. After the confession, the Mercer house stopped feeling like a home. It became a state where everyone performed normalcy badly. The mornings were the worst. Harper still sat at the kitchen island, eating cereal while cartoons played softly in the background, but the warmth that once filled the room had vanished. Gavin drank coffee in silence. Alice moved carefully around him as if sudden sounds might trigger an explosion. But Gavin never exploded. That unsettled Alice more than screaming would have, because rage was temporary. Calmness meant he was thinking. Outside, Seattle drank beneath endless October rain. Gray skies pressed low against the city, turning the lake outside their windows into cold steel. Inside the house, silence became another form of violence. "How long are you going to punish me like this?" Elise finally asked one morning. Gavin didn't look up from his phone. By breathing quietly, her jaw tightened. "You know what I mean." "No," he replied calmly. "I genuinely don't." Harper looked down at her cereal immediately. Children learn tension faster than language. Alice forced a softer tone. "We can't keep living like strangers." Gavin finally raised his eye toward her. "That's interesting," he said quietly. "Considering you've been emotionally living with someone else for almost 2 years." The words landed hard. Alice inhaled sharply. "Not in front of Harper." "Then maybe don't destroy our marriage in front of her." "Dad?" Harper whispered nervously. Instant regret crossed Gavin's face. He softened immediately. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." But Harper had already lost her appetite. "I'm not hungry anymore." She carried her bowl to the sink and disappeared upstairs without another word. The sound of her bedroom door closing echoed through the house. Alice looked devastated. "You see what this is doing to her?" Gavin stared at his wife in disbelief. "To her?" he repeated softly. "You still talk like this happened to you?" Tears filled Elise's eyes almost instantly now. Gavin had started noticing how quickly she could summon vulnerability when conversations became uncomfortable. "I made a mistake." "No," he said sharply. "You made thousands of choices. The distinction mattered. Affairs survive through repetition. Texts, calls, meetings, lists. People never accidentally betray someone for 2 years." Elise sat slowly across from him. "I ended it." Gavin's expression didn't change. "When?" "A few weeks ago." "Before or after Harper found the ring?" Silence. "There it was." He nodded slowly. "Exactly." Alice covered her face briefly. "You think I'm evil now?" "I think you're selfish." "That's not the same thing." "No," Gavin admitted. "It's worse. Because evil, at least, had clarity. Selfishness destroyed people while still expecting sympathy." That afternoon, Gavin skipped work for the first time in years. Instead, he sat in his parked car outside Harper's elementary school, watching parents gather beneath umbrellas at pickup. Normal people, normal lives, coffee cups, soccer schedules, grocery lists. He envied them with sudden bitterness. When Harper climbed into the passenger seat, she seemed quieter than usual. "How was school?" "Fine." "Lee." Children always inherit the emotional habit of their parents. "You want ice cream?" he asked. She looked surprised. "Even though it's cold?" "Especially because it's cold." That earned a tiny smile. They drove to a small waterfront shop near Pike Place Market. Harper ordered chocolate marshmallow. Gavin barely touched his own. For several minutes, they sat watching ferry move across grey water. Then Harper asked softly. Did Mom choose him over us? The question hollowed Gavin out instantly. No, he answered carefully. But she picked him. Children understood emotional math with terrifying precision. Gavin looked at his daughter's small face and realized she was trying to calculate her own worth inside the betrayal. That frightened him more than the affair itself. Listen to me, he said firmly. None of this happened because of you. Harper nodded weakly, but she didn't fully believe him, because children always assumed broken homes somehow traced back to them. Back at the house later that evening, Gavin found Elise standing in their bedroom, wearing the black silk dress she used to save for anniversaries. His stomach turned immediately. What are you doing? Her voice softened. Trying to fix us? No, trying to regain control. There was a difference. The candles, the perfume, the carefully vulnerable expression. Alice was rebuilding intimacy because she sensed him slipping beyond emotional reach. Gavin remained near the doorway. You slept with him in this house? Pain flashed across her face. Don't. It's a simple question. Elise swallowed hard. Yes. Where? Gavin. Where? Her eyes filled with humiliation. Our bedroom. Something inside him went completely still. Not broken. Not shattered. Just cold. Because now every memory in the room felt contaminated. Every holiday morning. Every quiet conversation. Every time she kissed him goodnight after being with someone else. How many times? Please stop. You lost the right to decide which truth hurt too much. The silence between them became unbearable. Finally, Alice whispered, for he laughed once. Not from amusement, from disbelief. 4 times in our bed. I hated myself afterward, but not enough to stop. She started crying harder now. Real crying this time. Ugly, uncontrolled. Yet Gavin felt almost nothing watching it. That frightened him too. You know the worst part? He asked quietly. Elise looked up through tears. I would have forgiven almost anything if you told me the truth before I had to discover it myself. The sentence destroyed her more effectively than yelling ever could, because she knew it was true. Gavin had loved her deeply once, enough to survive damage, but deception changed the shape of love itself. That night, he moved into the downstairs guest room. Harper noticed immediately. She stood in the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, while Gavin carried blankets downstairs. Are you leaving? The fear in her voice nearly broke him. No, he said quickly. I'm still here. Then, why aren't you sleeping with Mom? Because your mother brought another man into our marriage? Because every pillow upstairs feels poison now. Because betrayal changes oxygen inside a house. Instead, he knelt beside her. Sometimes adults need space to think clearly. Harper looked close to tears. Are we still a family? Gavin couldn't answer immediately, and that silence became the answer she feared most. A few days later, Elise attempted a different strategy. Guilt? You weren't exactly perfect either, she said one night while they argued quietly in the kitchen. Gavin looked at her carefully. Meaning? You disappeared into work for years. I worked to provide for us. You worked to avoid us. The accusation lingered heavily, because parts of it were true. Gavin had buried himself inside corporate war and 80-hour work week. He had missed birthdays, dance recitals, quiet emotional moments. Elise probably stopped trying to share, but neglect and betrayal were not equivalent currencies. You could divorce me, he said calmly. Elise looked away. I didn't want to lose the life we built. There it was. Honesty. Finally. Not love. Not passion. Lifestyle. security, status. The beautiful Mercer image everyone envied online. Gavin leaned forward slowly. So, you kept me for stability and loved someone else for excitement. That's not fair. No, he agreed quietly. Fair would have been telling me. Elise broke down again. But now, Gavin noticed something new beneath the tears. Fear. Not fear of losing him emotionally. Fear of consequences. Fear of exposure. Fear of becoming the villain publicly instead of privately. That realization changed everything. Because for the first time, Gavin stopped seeing himself as the helpless victim inside the marriage and started understanding something Elise had completely underestimated. He knew how to build cases, how to wait, how to dismantle lies patiently. And upstairs, hidden inside his office drawer, financial records and screenshots were already beginning to form a timeline far more dangerous than Elise realized. Meanwhile, Harper withdrew further every day. Less laughter, more silence, more time alone in her bedroom sketching families with missing faces. One evening, Gavin passed her room and noticed she had stopped drawing her mother entirely. That terrified him more than the affair ever could. Because adults survive betrayal, children survive confusion, but emotional abandonment left scars that lasted decades. And somewhere inside the suffocating silence of the Mercer house, all three of them were beginning to understand the same horrifying truth. Some marriages did not collapse in one dramatic moment. They rotted slowly from secrets no one wanted to name out loud. The financial betrayal was what finally killed the last part of Gavin that still wanted to save the marriage. Not the sex, not the lies, not even Lucas. Money changed everything because money meant planning, Anton, future. And Gavin discovered the truth on a rainy Tuesday night while reviewing account statements at 2 in the morning in the downstairs office that had quietly become his bedroom. The Mercer house was asleep, or pretending to be. Upstairs, footsteps occasionally creaked across the hallway floorboards. Elise pacing again. She had started sleeping less ever since the confession. Gavin noticed dark circles beneath her eyes now, carefully hidden beneath makeup every morning before work. Guilt aged people quickly, but not quickly enough. The glow from Gavin's laptop reflected across stacks of printed bank statements spread across the desk. At first, he had only been organizing assets for a possible divorce consultation. Then, he noticed the transfers, small amounts initially, 5,000, 8,000, 12,000, always routed through Elise's personal design consultancy account before disappearing into a company Gavin had never heard of, Nova Stratum Technologies. His stomach tightened instantly. He opened another tab. The CEO photograph loaded slowly. Lucas Hale smiled back at him from the screen. Gavin leaned back in silence, then opened the transfer history again. The amounts escalated over time. By the end of the year, Elise had transferred nearly $300,000, not from her money, family money, trust accounts, joint investments. One withdrawal even came from Harper's education fund. For several seconds, Gavin genuinely stopped breathing. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. He stared at the screen again, hoping exhaustion had distorted the numbers. It hadn't. Harper's future, their daughter's future. Elise had gambled it on another man. And suddenly the affair stopped being emotional devastation alone. Now it became something colder, more dangerous. Betrayal with legal consequences. Gavin closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, something inside him had fundamentally changed. Before tonight, part of him still saw Elise as flawed. lonely, weak. Now he saw calculation, because people did not secretly move hundreds of thousands of dollars without understanding exactly what they were doing. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked again. Gavin stood slowly, then carried the printed statements upstairs in complete silence. He found Elise sitting against the headboard in their bedroom, wearing glasses and pretending to read. Pretending, because the book had not changed pages in nearly 20 minutes. She looked up immediately when he entered. Fear crossed her face the moment she saw the papers in his hand. "What's that?" Gavin shut the bedroom door behind him, then tossed the statements onto the bed. "You tell me." Elise glanced down, and the color drained from her face instantly. There it was, confirmation before words even arrived. Gavin watched her carefully. "How much money did you give him?" Elise swallowed hard. "It's not what you think." The sentence almost made him laugh. People only say that when reality was already worse than imagination. "How much?" She stared silently at the paperwork. "Answer me." Her voice came out barely audible. "About 300. 300 what? Thousand." The number echoed violently inside his skull. $300,000. Gone. Redirected into Lucas Hale's collapsing startup while Gavin worked 80-hour week, believing he was securing his family's future. "You stole from our daughter," he whispered. Tears instantly filled Elisa's eyes. "I was going to replace it." "When?" "Silence." "Exactly." Gavin stepped closer, slowly. "Did he ask you for the money?" "No." "Then why?" Elise looked shattered now. Not elegant, not composed, just exhausted, because he needed help, and Harper didn't. "That's not fair." "No," Gavin snapped sharply. "Fair was not draining our child's future to impress your boyfriend." Elise flinched physically. "Good." For the first time since this nightmare began, Gavin wanted her to feel the full ugliness of what she had done. "He said the company would recover," she whispered desperately. "It was temporary." "What company?" "Nova." "I know the company. I'm asking what kind of business burned through investor money fast enough to need secret transfer for married women." Elise looked away. Another answer hidden in silence. Gavin grabbed his phone immediately and searched deeper into Lucas's company financial records. What he found made his blood run cold. Lawsuit, debt restructuring, private investor dispute. Nova Stratum wasn't succeeding. It was dying. And Elise had been feeding money into the collapse like someone trying to keep a sinking ship afloat with bare hands. "You knew it was failing," Gavin said quietly. Her eyes filled again. "He promised me things would turn around." Jesus Christ. Gavin stepped backward like he physically could not stand near her anymore. "You believe him over your own family." "It wasn't like that." "Then explain it to me." His voice finally rose. "Explain how you looked at Harper every day knowing you were secretly draining her future for another man." "I loved him." The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence. Complete silence. Both of them froze. Because finally, the truth entered the room without disguise. Elise covered her mouth instantly. Too late. Gavin stared at her with an expression she had never seen before. Not rage, not heartbreak, recognition, like he was finally seeing her clearly after years of distortion. "You love him," he repeated quietly. Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen." That sentence meant nothing anymore. Elise broke completely then, full body sobbing. Humiliation, fear, regret crashing into reality all at once. I was lonely, she cried. You stopped seeing me years ago. Gavin's jaw tightened. And somehow that justifies stealing from our daughter? No. Then stop connecting your loneliness to your choices. Because that was the part Gavin finally understood. Elise wanted emotional context to soften moral responsibility. But betrayal remained betrayal, even when loneliness explained it. You know what the worst thing is? Gavin asked quietly. She looked at him helplessly. I could have survived you loving someone else. Her face crumpled harder. But this, he pointed at the financial statements. This means you were building a future with him while pretending to build one with us. That was the true affair, not hidden hotel rooms. Investment, planning, hope. Elise had emotionally relocated long before Gavin discovered the ring. Downstairs, a soft sound interrupted them. Harper. Both parents turned instantly. Harper stood halfway down the staircase in oversized pajamas, clutching the railing tightly, eyes wide, terrified. Children always heard the worst parts. Are we losing the house? She whispered. The question shattered something human inside Gavin. Elise burst into fresh tears immediately. No, baby. But Harper looked only at her father, because children instinctively knew which parent still felt emotionally safe. Gavin moved toward the stairs quickly. No, he said gently, kneeling in front of her. You're safe. Harper's voice trembled. Why were you yelling? Gavin glanced upward toward Elise standing frozen in the bedroom doorway. Because your mother gave our money to the man she loves. Because adults destroy things children depend on. Because trust is expensive once broken. Instead, he answered carefully. Mom and I made mistakes handling grown-up problems. Harper looked unconvinced, then quietly asked the question neither of them wanted to hear. Does Mom love him more than us? Elise broke down completely. Harper, no. But the child had already started crying. And in that devastating moment, Gavin realized the affair was no longer truly about marriage anymore. It was about damage. Permanent emotional damage spreading through the house like smoke. Later that night, after Harper finally fell asleep between tears and exhaustion, Gavin sat alone downstairs with a glass of untouched whiskey. Rain hammered the windows violently. Upstairs, he could hear Elise crying through the floorboards. For the first time in weeks, he opened a fresh legal document on his laptop. Divorce Mercy Eliza. Then another file, custody strategy. Then another, financial fraud, asset recovery. His expression remained calm while typing, almost emotionless, because grief was slowly evolving into clarity, and somewhere deep beneath the heartbreak, Gavin Mercer began understanding something Elise had completely failed to anticipate. He was no longer trying to survive the betrayal. He was preparing to win. 2 weeks before the gala, Elise Mercer learned how exhausting it was to live inside a collapsing lie. Not because people suspected her, because they didn't. That was the cruel part. Seattle still adored her. Brands still courted her. Social media still worshipped the illusion of elegance she had spent years constructing carefully online. Her followers flooded the comments beneath her New Age post, smiling photographs from a children's charity fundraiser, where she stood beside Gavin and Harper beneath golden lighting. Perfect family, perfect marriage, perfect life. Only Gavin knew Elise had cried in the bathroom 20 minutes before that photograph was taken because Lucas stopped answering her calls. and only Harper noticed her parents no longer touch each other naturally. The gala approached quickly after that. The Winterlight Foundation Charity Gala was one of the most visible social events in Seattle's upper circles. Tech executives, politicians, investors, luxury brands, media outlets. Elise had spent nearly a year preparing the foundation partnership presentation that could elevate her interior design company into national recognition. It was supposed to be her defining moment, which was exactly why Gavin waited. Patience mattered. Emotional people reacted too early. Strategic people let truth mature before exposing it. And Gavin Mercer had become terrifyingly strategic. That Thursday morning, Elise stood in front of the bedroom mirror, adjusting diamond earrings, while Harper silently packed her backpack nearby. "You excited for tonight?" Elise asked gently. Harper shrugged. "You're giving a speech, right?" "A big one." Elise forced a smile. "You and Dad will be there." At the mention of him, Harper glanced toward the doorway nervously. Children learn emotional weather patterns inside home faster than adults realize. Gavin appeared a moment later, already dressed for work in a charcoal suit, carrying coffee and reviewing emails from his phone. "Alice," he said calmly, "your attorney emailed mine." Her body stiffened instantly. Harper froze too. "We are discussing logistics later," Alice replied quietly. "Good. Nothing else. No anger. No visible resentment." And somehow that frightened Elise more every day, because Gavin had stopped emotionally chasing explanation. Now he was organizing consequences. After Harper left for school, Elise followed Gavin downstairs. "You're really doing this?" she whispered. He looked up from the kitchen counter. "You moved $300,000 into your boyfriend's collapsing company?" Tears immediately gathered in her eyes again. "You say it like I'm a criminal, aren't you? That money was ours." "No," Gavin replied coldly. "Part of it belonged to Harper." The mention of their daughter visibly wounded her. "Good. It should." Alice stepped closer carefully. "I know you hate me right now." "I don't hate you." The answer surprised both of them, because it was true. Hatred required emotional attachment. What Gavin felt now was colder. Disappointment, distance, recognition. "You know what I think?" he continued quietly. "I think you spent years convincing yourself you were trapped in an unhappy marriage instead of admitting you liked being desired by two different men." Elise flinched. "Lucas made me feel seen, and I made you feel safe." Her silence confirmed everything. Gavin nodded once. "Exactly." The gala preparation consumed the rest of the week. Designers entered and exited the Mercer house, carrying gowns and jewelry cases. Publicists called constantly. Event coordinators emailed schedules every hour, and through all of it, Elise performed normalcy with terrifying professionalism. One afternoon, Gavin watched her record a promotional video for the foundation from the living room. Her smile looked radiant beneath camera lighting. Her voice sounded warm and compassionate. "Family," Elise said into the camera gracefully, "is the foundation of everything meaningful in life." Gavin nearly laughed aloud, not because it was ironic, because she sounded sincere while saying it. That was the truly dangerous thing about people like Elise. Eventually, they believed their own performances. That night, Gavin sat alone in his downtown office meeting with attorney Daniel Roth. Divorce documents covered the conference table. "So," Daniel said carefully, adjusting his glasses, "I need to ask directly. Are you planning public exposure?" Gavin remained quiet for several seconds. "Yes." Daniel exhaled slowly. That complicates custody. She involved our daughter's education fund. I know, and the financial records help you significantly. Daniel lowered his voice. But public humiliation can backfire legally if it looks retaliatory. It's not retaliation. Then what is it? Gavin's expression hardened. Truth. But even he knew that wasn't fully accurate anymore. Because somewhere beneath the calm strategy lived something darker. He wanted Elise to feel helpless for once. The same helplessness he experienced the night Harper handed him another man's ring. Daniel slid another folder toward him. We traced additional transfers. Gavin opened it. His jaw tightened instantly. Luxury hotel payments, international flights, private account withdrawals linked directly to Lucas' health, far more extensive than he initially realized. And then, one final document, Nova Stratum Internal Financial Forecast. Company collapse imminent. Lucas hadn't merely accepted Elise's money. He needed it desperately, which meant Elise was never a great love story to him. She was emergency funding wrapped in emotional validation. For the first time since discovering the affair, Gavin almost pitied her. Almost. You okay? Daniel asked carefully. Gavin stared at the document. She destroyed her life for a man who was using her. People in affairs rarely see reality clearly. No, Gavin replied quietly. They see fantasy clearly. Back at home later that evening, Harper sat beside Gavin on the couch while rain battered the windows again. She had started sleeping poorly. Nightmares. Withdrawal. Her teacher even emailed concerns about emotional distraction in class. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart. Are you leaving after the gala? The question startled him. Why would you think that? Harper looked down at her hands. Mom kept crying after phone calls. Gavin felt a cold realization settle inside him. Lucas was already distancing himself. He could sense collapse approaching. Cowards usually ran first. Gavin pulled Harper gently closer. No matter what happened, he said carefully, you and I are going to be okay. Promise? Yes. And for the first time in weeks, Gavin realized he meant it. Because clarity brought something strange with it. Freedom. The night before the gala, Elise knocked quietly on the guest room door. Gavin looked up from his laptop. What? She entered slowly wearing one of his old sweaters. A calculated choice. Memory. Nostalgia. Softness. You used to love this sweater on me, she whispered. Gavin closed the laptop carefully. What do you want, Elise? Tears filled her eyes immediately. I want my husband back. The sentence hung painfully in the room. Gavin studied her for a long moment, then asked quietly, or do you want your life back? Her expression cracked, because she knew the difference too. Elise, he said calmly, if Harper hadn't found that ring, would you still be seeing him? Silence. The answer lived there, not in words, in hesitation. Gavin nodded slowly. That's what I thought. She started crying harder. I was going to end it. When? I don't know. Exactly. He stood slowly now. You didn't stop because you loved us more. Her breathing became uneven. You stopped because you got caught. The truth hit her harder than screaming ever could, because it stripped away every romantic excuse she had built around the affair. Loneliness, emotional neglect, feeling unseen. None of it changed reality. She cheated because she wanted both lives at once. And now both were collapsing. Elise, Gavin said quietly, tomorrow night, just tell the truth for once. Fear flashed across her face instantly. What does that mean? But Gavin only looked at her silently. And for the first time since the affair began unraveling, Elise Mercer truly understood something terrifying. Her husband was no longer reacting emotionally. He was planning something precise, something final. And downstairs, beneath the soft glow of the Mercer home, the beautiful house built on years of curated appearances, divorce papers, custody filings, financial evidence, screenshots, hotel receipts, and private messages already waited silently inside Gavin's locked briefcase. The performance was almost over. Only Elise didn't yet realize the audience was about to see who she really was. The Winter Life Foundation Gala began exactly the way Elise Mercer always imagined success would feel. Golden chandeliers, crystal glasses, the soft hum of expensive conversation floating through the ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in downtown Seattle. Outside, rain coated the city in silver reflections, but inside the ballroom, everything glowed warm and flawless beneath camera flashes and luxury branding. A string quartet played near the marble staircase, while investors, politicians, athletes, and tech executives drifted through the room wrapped in tuxedos and designer gowns. And at the center of it all stood Elise, perfect, intouchable. Her champagne-colored silk gown caught the light every time she moved. Her smile looked effortless again tonight, carefully practiced in the mirror after hours of crying privately in bathrooms and parked cars over the past month. From a distance, nobody would suspect her life was collapsing. That was the frightening thing about sophisticated people. They learn how to perform devastation beautifully. Mrs. Mercer, a photographer motioned toward her near the sponsor wall. Elise, over here. She turned gracefully, smiled, tilting slightly. Elegant shoulder angle. Years of social conditioning disguised panic almost automatically now. Then the photographer asked, "Can we get one with your husband?" For one brief second, fear flashed through her. But Gavin appeared beside her before she could react. Calm, composed, devastatingly controlled. His tuxedo fit perfectly. His expression remained unreadable beneath the ballroom lights. The photographer grinned. "You two look incredible together." Gavin glanced toward Elise. "Yes," he said quietly. "We've spent years perfecting appearances." The sentence sounded harmless to everyone else. But Elise felt eyes slide down her spine. Flash. Another photograph captured them forever smiling beside each other moments before destruction. Across the ballroom, Harper sat quietly at a reserved table beside Gavin's sister Rebecca. She wore a navy dress and looked painfully uncomfortable around so many strangers. She kept watching her parents carefully. Children sense disasters before adults admitted them aloud. "Elise," a voice interrupted. Lucas Hay approached through the crowd. Confident smile. Black tuxedo. Perfectly styled. For months, Elise once believed he looked powerful entering rooms like this. Tonight, he looked dangerous. Because now, Gavin knew everything. Lucas extended a hand toward Gavin smoothly. "Good to finally see you again." Again. Interesting word choice. Meaning they had technically met before in passing during the affair years without Gavin realizing who he truly was. Gavin shook his hand calmly. "Lucas?" No emotion, no confrontation, and somehow that unsettled Lucas instantly. Elise noticed it too, because men like Lucas understood emotional reactions, but emotional silence, that was harder to predict. "You excited for the presentation?" Lucas asked Elise casually. "Very. You'll crush it." The intimacy beneath the sentence was microscopic, but Gavin heard it. Of course he did. People in affairs always believe they were subtle. They never were. A foundation board member approached moments later, asking Elise to prepare backstage before her keynote speech. As she walked away, Lucas leaned slightly toward Gavin. "You've got a remarkable wife." Gavin held his gaze evenly. "Louis?" Something shifted in Lucas' expression. A tiny fracture in confidence. "Good." For the first time all evening, Gavin finally saw uncertainty reach him. Meanwhile, backstage, Elise stood alone, gripping note cards with trembling fingers. Her reflection stared back from the vanity mirror beneath harsh makeup lights. Beautiful, exhausted, terrified. Something felt wrong tonight. Not externally, internally. Gavin had become too calm, too polite, too detached. She replayed his final words from the previous night again. "Just tell the truth for once." A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. One of the event coordinators smiled warmly. 5 minutes. Elise nodded, then reached for her phone instinctively. No new messages from Lucas. That hurt more than she expected, because over the past week he had slowly begun distancing himself from the disaster unfolding around her. Shorter replies, missed call, less reassurance. Cowards always sense consequences before anyone else. When Elise finally stepped onto the ballroom stage, applause erupted instantly. Spotlights illuminated her against massive projection screens displaying foundation branding behind her. She smiled automatically. Professional instinct took over. "Good evening, everyone." Her voice carried beautifully across the room. The audience listened attentively while cameras streamed the gala online. Elise spoke about community, family, compassion, integrity. Every word felt heavier than the last. At one table, Gavin sat perfectly still watching her, not with anger, with clarity. That frightened Elise most, because she realized too late. He was no longer emotionally wounded enough to protect her. And ultimately, Elise continued gracefully, "The most meaningful thing we can leave behind is trust." The irony nearly suffocated her. Then, suddenly, the presentation screen behind her flickered. Elise paused mid-sentence. The audience shifted slightly. Technical glitch. At first, she smiled politely. "Looks like technology disagreed with me tonight." Small laughter scattered politely through the ballroom. Then, the next image appeared. A hotel receipt. Paris Le Meurice Hotel. 2 guests. Lucas Haley. Elise Mercier. The room went silent instantly. Elise stopped breathing. "No," she whispered. "Another screen. Bank transfer records. Nova Stratum Technologies. 7,500美元. 4,200美元. 11,000美元. Then another. Text message. Large enough for the entire ballroom to read. Lucas, your husband really has no idea, does he?" Elise. Gavin see what he want to see. Another message. Lucas, you staying with him for Harper? Elise. Partly. Mostly because divorce would destroy the brand image right now. Gasps spread visibly now. People began whispering immediately. Phones appeared everywhere. Recording, photographing, capturing collapse in real time. Elise, someone near the front, whispered in horror. Another message appeared. Lucas, do you still sleep with him? A long pause. Then Elise's reply. Elise, only when I need the performance to look believable. The ballroom erupted into stunned noise. Elise physically staggered backward on stage. No, no, no. Her breathing turned uneven. Panic. True panic. Not controlled tears. Not curated vulnerability. This was destruction. Raw and irreversible. She searched desperately through the crowd until she found Gavin standing slowly near the back of the ballroom, calm, watching. The realization hit her like impact trauma. He did this, her husband, the man she underestimated for months, the man she thought was quietly drowning in heartbreak. He had been building this moment instead. Elise Mercer secretly transferred family assets into the failing company of her affair partner Lucas Hale. Gavin's voice suddenly echoed through the ballroom microphone system. Someone handed him a microphone. Or maybe he had arranged it already. Of course he had. Everything about tonight was planned. Gavin stepped forward slowly. Every eye in the room followed him now. Some of that money, he continued calmly, came directly from our daughter's education fund. The whispers became louder instantly. Sponsors exchanged horrified looks. Foundation executives looked sick. Lucas stood frozen near the rear ballroom entrance, pale beneath the lights. "Elise," Gavin said quietly into the microphone. "You spent 2 years telling another man I was emotionally absent while using my work to finance your affair." She started shaking violently. "Please stop." But he didn't, because she never stopped when the damage was happening privately. Another screenshot appeared. This one was, "Lucas, you know what's funny? He still looks at you like you're innocent." Elise said, "That's because Gavin needs to believe he married someone better than himself." A woman near the sponsor tables audibly gasped. The humiliation became physical now. Alice looked around the ballroom desperately. People she had worked beside for years suddenly avoided eye contact. Others stayed openly, judging, calculating, distancing themselves socially in real time. Her carefully built reputation was dying publicly by the second. And then, the final betrayal. Lucas quietly turned and walked toward the exit. Alice saw him leaving. Lucas. He didn't stop, didn't turn around, didn't save her. Because self-preservation always outweighed romance once consequences arrived, and suddenly Alice understood everything. She destroyed her family for a man who wouldn't even remain standing beside her during exposure. That realization shattered whatever remained inside her. She collapsed into tears on stage. Not elegant tears, not cinematic tears, humiliating sobs, mascara streaking, breathing uneven. The entire ballroom watching. Gavin looked at her for a long moment, then finally said the words that truly ended the marriage. "You didn't lose me tonight, Elise." His voice remained calm. "You lost me the moment our daughter became collateral damage in your selfishness." Silence swallowed the ballroom completely. Across the room, Harper stood beside Rebecca with tears in her eyes. Gavin immediately walked toward her. "Not Elise, never Elise." Harper threw herself into his arms instantly. And while cameras continued flashing around the collapsing ruins of Elise Mercer's perfect public image, Gavin carried his daughter out of the ballroom without looking back. Behind them, sponsors began quietly withdrawing support. Board members whispered urgently. Publicists panicked. Phones exploded across Seattle's social circles and social media feeds in real time. And alone beneath the stage lights she once dreamed of standing under, Elise Mercer finally understood the true cost of betrayal. Not losing reputation, not losing wealth, not even losing love. It was realizing too late that the person who once would have protected you from public destruction had finally decided you deserved none of his mercy. By sunrise, Seattle already knew. Not the softened version, not the carefully managed public relations statement, Alice's team desperately attempted to release at 3 in the morning. The real version. Screenshots spread across social media faster than damage control could contain them. Blogs reposted the gala footage within hours. Local news stations blur parts of the messages but still air enough to destroy her reputation completely. Seattle design executive exposed in charity gala scandal. Foundation board investigating misuse of funds. Tech investor linked to high-profile affair. Every headline stripped another layer from the life Alice Mercer spent years constructing. And Lucas Hale disappeared immediately. His publicist issued a sterile statement before noon. Nova Stratum Technology does not comment on private personal matters unrelated to company operations. Private personal matters. As if Alice had merely been an inconvenience, not a woman who secretly funded his dying company and detonated her family trying to save him. By afternoon, Lucas deactivated his social media accounts entirely. No calls, no apologies, nothing. Alice sat alone in the Mercer kitchen, staring at the television while rain crawled endlessly down the windows. The house felt enormous now, empty. Every surface carried memory. She could no longer emotionally survive. Harper's drawing still hung on the refrigerator. One was missing, the family portrait. Alice noticed immediately. Slowly, she stood and searched through the house until she found it inside the downstairs trash bin beneath crumpled paper towels. Harper had thrown it away. That hurt more than the headlines, more than the scandal, more than losing Lucas, because children did not destroy pictures unless something inside them had broken first. Elise sank onto the kitchen floor, clutching the drawing against her chest while sobs tore through her body uncontrollably. And for the first time since the affair began, there was nobody left willing to comfort her. Not Lucas, not Gavin, not even herself. Upstairs, suitcases rolled softly across hardwood floors. Gavin was packing, not dramatically, not angrily, methodically. The divorce hearing had moved faster after the financial evidence surfaced publicly. Alice's attorneys advised immediate settlement negotiations to avoid further legal exposure involving Harper's education fund. Gavin agreed calmly because he no longer needed revenge. Truth had already done the work for him. Daddy? Harper stood quietly in the doorway of his bedroom, holding a stuffed rabbit beneath one arm. You almost done? Almost. She watched him fold shirts carefully into a suitcase. Are we really leaving Seattle? For a while. Where are we going? Boston. Harper thought about that silently. Will Mom come later? The question lingered painfully in the room. Gavin zipped the suitcase slowly before answering. No, sweetheart. Harper nodded. She didn't cry. That frightened him most. Children stop crying once reality settled permanently inside them. She tried calling my phone. Harper whispered. What did you do? I didn't answer. Gavin studied his daughter carefully. You don't have to hate your mother. I don't. Her voice trembled slightly. I just don't trust her anymore. The sentence hollowed him out. Because trust once broken inside a child rarely returns the same way. Downstairs, Elise heard footsteps approaching and stood quickly, wiping tears from her face before Gavin entered the kitchen. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt exhausted now. Not explosive, not emotional, simply finished. You're taking her today? Elise finally asked. Yes. Her breathing became uneven again. I should get to say goodbye. Gavin remained calm. That depends on Harper. Pain crossed Alice's face instantly. She's 10 years old and already understands betrayal better than most adults. Elise looked down. You think I'm a monster? No, Gavin said quietly. I think you're someone who kept choosing immediate emotional gratification over long-term consequences. That sounds clinical. That's because I spent months trying to understand how someone destroyed their own family while still expecting sympathy. Elise closed her eyes briefly. You know what the worst part is? Gavin said nothing. She laughed weakly through tears. Lucas barely answered my calls after the gala. There it was. The final humiliation. Not only had she destroyed her marriage, she destroyed it for a man who abandoned her immediately once public shame arrived. He used me, she whispered. Gavin's expression remained unreadable. No, he replied calmly. He revealed what you were willing to become. The distinction devastated her, because deep down Elise knew he was right. Affairs always felt romantic while hidden inside fantasy. Reality exposed them differently, not as destiny, as selfishness. I loved you once, Elise whispered suddenly. Gavin looked at her for a long moment. I know. The simplicity of the answer shattered her more than cruelty would have, because he acknowledged the truth without needing it anymore. Tears streamed silently down her face. When did you stop loving me? Gavin thought carefully before answering. Probably the night Harper asked if we were still a family. Elise covered her mouth immediately as fresh sobs escaped her, because she remembered the fear in their daughter's eyes too, the confusion, the insecurity, the emotional collapse happening quietly upstairs while the adults obsessed over themselves. I never wanted to hurt her, but you did, not angrily, not loudly, just truth. And truth had become unbearable now because nobody was softening it anymore. A car horn sounded softly outside. Rebecca had arrived to help with luggage. Gavin picked up his coat. Elise? She looked up desperately. For one fragile second, hope flickered across her face. Then Gavin placed divorce documents gently onto the kitchen counter. Hope died instantly. The house will be sold after the holidays, he said calmly. Daniel will coordinate the remaining financial division. Her breathing became shallow. So this is really over. Gavin looked around the kitchen slowly. The marble counters, the expensive lighting, the carefully curated life they spent years building together. It ended long before either of us admitted it, and that was the final truth. The marriage did not die at the gala, or with the ring, or even with Lucas. It died slowly across years of emotional absence, hidden resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and choices neither of them confronted honestly enough. The affair merely exposed the corpse. A few minutes later, Harper finally came downstairs, wearing her winter coat and backpack. Alice stood instantly. Baby. Harper hesitated near the doorway. The distance between them suddenly looked enormous. I packed your rabbit, Alice whispered carefully. Thanks. Nothing more. No hug. No warmth. Just politeness. That almost killed Elise. She moved closer cautiously. Can I at least say goodbye? Harper looked toward her father first. Permission. Safety. Gavin nodded gently. Elise knelt immediately in front of her daughter. Her voice broke apart instantly. I am so sorry. Harper stared at her silently. Then, finally, whispered the question that would haunt Elise for the rest of her life. Why wasn't that enough? The room stopped breathing. Because children always reach the truth faster than adults buried beneath excuses. Elise collapsed emotionally. No sophisticated explanation remained anymore. No loneliness speeches, no emotional neglect arguments, nothing. Because there was no answer strong enough to justify destroying the one person who truly loved her completely. Harper stepped backward quietly, then took Gavin's hand, and together they walked toward the front door. Elise followed helplessly. Harper. But the child never turned around. The front door opened. Cold Seattle rain drifted inside briefly, then closed. And suddenly the Mercer house became silent in a way Elise had never experienced before. Not peaceful silence, abandoned silence, the kind that echoed. Hours later, she wandered upstairs into the master bedroom alone. The closet looked half empty now. Gavin's side cleared, Harper's favorite blankets missing. Life removed carefully piece by piece. On the nightstand beside the bed rested one final object Gavin intentionally left behind. The platinum ring Harper found under the bed weeks ago. Elise stared at it for a very long time, then finally picked it up with trembling fingers. Forever begins in Paris. The inscription now felt grotesque, not romantic, just evidence. A souvenir from the exact moment she confused desire for meaning. Outside, rain continued falling over Seattle as evening settled across the empty house. Somewhere above the clouds, a plane carried Gavin and Harper east toward a quieter future neither of them could imagine yet. And alone inside the ruins of her beautiful life, Elise Mercer finally understood the cruelest consequence of betrayal. The people who truly love you rarely stop loving all at once. They stop slowly, after every lie, every excuse, every selfish choice, until one day they look at you without anger any by sunrise. Seattle already knew, not the softened version, not the carefully managed public relations statement Elise's team desperately attempted to release at 3 in the morning. The real version. Screenshots spread across social media faster than damage control could contain them. Blogs reposted the gala footage within hours. Local news stations blurred parts of the messages, but still aired enough to destroy her reputation completely. Seattle design executive exposed in charity gala scandal. Foundation board investigating misuse of funds. Tech investor linked to high-profile affair. Every headline stripped another layer from the life Elise Mercer spent years constructing. And Lucas Hale disappeared immediately. His publicist issued a sterile statement before noon. Nova Stratum Technology does not comment on private personal matter unrelated to company operations. Private personal matters. As if Elise had merely been an inconvenience, not a woman who secretly funded his dying company and detonated her family trying to save him. By afternoon, Lucas deactivated his social media accounts entirely. No calls, no apologies, nothing. Elise sat alone in the Mercer kitchen, staring at the television while rain crawled endlessly down the windows. The house felt enormous now, empty. Every surface carried memories she could no longer emotionally survive. Harper's drawing still hung on the refrigerator. One was missing, the family portrait. Elise noticed immediately. Slowly, she stood and searched through the house until she found it inside the downstairs trash bin beneath crumpled paper towels. Harper had thrown it away. That hurt more than the headlines, more than the scandal, more than losing Lucas. Because children did not destroy pictures unless something inside them had broken first. Elise sank onto the kitchen floor, clutching the drawing against her chest, while sobs tore through her body uncontrollably. And for the first time since the affair began, there was nobody left willing to comfort her. Not Lucas, not Gavin, not even herself. Upstairs, suitcases rolled softly across hardwood floors. Gavin was packing, not dramatically, not angrily, methodically. The divorce hearing had moved faster after the financial evidence surfaced publicly. Elisa's attorneys advised immediate settlement negotiations to avoid further legal exposure involving Harper's education fund. Gavin agreed calmly, because he no longer needed revenge. Truth had already done the work for him. Dad? Harper stood quietly in the doorway of his bedroom, holding a stuffed rabbit beneath one arm. You almost done? Almost. She watched him fold shirts carefully into a suitcase. Are we really leaving Seattle? For a while. Where are we going? Boston. Harper thought about that silently. Will Mom come later? The question lingered painfully in the room. Gavin zipped the suitcase slowly before answering. No, sweetheart. Harper nodded. She didn't cry. That frightened him most. Children stop crying once reality settled permanently inside them. She tried calling my phone. Harper whispered. What did you do? I didn't answer. Gavin studied his daughter carefully. You don't have to hate your mother. I don't. Her voice trembled slightly. I just don't trust her anymore. The sentence hollowed him out. Because trust once broken inside a child rarely returns the same way. Downstairs, Alice heard footsteps approaching and stood quickly, wiping tears from her face before Gavin entered the kitchen. For several seconds neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt exhausted now, not explosive, not emotional, simply finished. You taking her today? Alice finally asked. Yes. Her breathing became uneven again. I should get to say goodbye. Gavin remained calm. That depends on Harper. Pain crossed Alice's face instantly. She's 10 years old and already understands betrayal better than most adults. Alice looked down. You think I'm a monster? No, Gavin said quietly. I think you're someone who kept choosing immediate emotional gratification over long-term consequences. That sounds clinical. That's because I spent months trying to understand how someone destroys their own family while still expecting sympathy. Elise closed her eyes briefly. You know what the worst part is? Gavin said nothing. She laughed weakly through tears. Lucas barely answered my calls after the gala. There it was, the final humiliation. Not only had she destroyed her marriage, she destroyed it for a man who abandoned her immediately once public shame arrived. He used me, she whispered. Gavin's expression remained unreadable. No, he replied calmly. He revealed what you were willing to become. The distinction devastated her, because deep down, Elise knew he was right. Affairs always felt romantic, while hidden inside fantasy. Reality exposed them differently, not as destiny, as selfishness. I loved you once, Elise whispered suddenly. Gavin looked at her for a long moment. I know. The simplicity of the answer shattered her more than cruelty would have, because he acknowledged the truth without needing it anymore. Tears streamed silently down her face. When did you stop loving me? Gavin thought carefully before answering. Probably the night Harper asked if we were still a family. Elise covered her mouth immediately as fresh sobs escaped her, because she remembered the fear in their daughter's eyes too. The confusion, the insecurity, the emotional collapse happening quietly upstairs while the adults obsessed over themselves. I never wanted to hurt her, but you did. Not angrily, not loudly, just truth. And truth had become unbearable now because nobody was softening it anymore. A car horn sounded softly outside. Rebecca had arrived to help with luggage. Gavin picked up his coat. Elise. She looked up desperately. For one fragile second, hope flickered across her face. Then Gavin placed divorce documents gently onto the kitchen counter. Hope died instantly. The house will be sold after the holidays, he said calmly. Daniel will coordinate the remaining financial division. Her breathing became shallow. So this is really over. Gavin looked around the kitchen slowly. The marble counters, the expensive lighting, the carefully curated life they spent years building together, it ended long before either of us admitted it. And that was the final truth. The marriage did not die at the gala, or with the ring, or even with Lucas. It died slowly across years of emotional absence, hidden resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and choices neither of them confronted honestly enough. The affair merely exposed the corpse. A few minutes later, Harper finally came downstairs wearing her winter coat and backpack. Elise stood instantly. Baby. Harper hesitated near the doorway. The distance between them suddenly looked enormous. I packed your rabbit, Elise whispered carefully. Thanks. Nothing more. No hug, no warmth, just politeness. That almost killed Elise. She moved closer cautiously. Can I at least say goodbye? Harper looked toward her father first. Permission. Safety. Gavin nodded gently. Alice knelt immediately in front of her daughter. Her voice broke apart instantly. I am so sorry. Harper stared at her silently, then finally whispered the question that would haunt Elise for the rest of her life. Why wasn't that enough? The room stopped breathing. Because children always reach the truth faster than adults, buried beneath excuses. Elise collapsed emotionally. No sophisticated explanations remained anymore. No loneliness speeches. No emotional neglect arguments. Nothing. Because there was no answer strong enough to justify destroying the one person who truly loved her completely. Harper stepped backward quietly, then took Gavin's hand, and together they walked toward the front door. Alice followed helplessly. Harper. But the child never turned around. The front door opened. Cold Seattle rain drifted inside briefly, then closed, and suddenly the Mercer house became silent in a way Alice had never experienced before. Not peaceful silence, abandoned silence, the kind that echoed. Hours later, she wandered upstairs into the master bedroom alone. The closet looked half empty now. Gavin's side clear, Harper's favorite blankets missing. Life removed carefully piece by piece. On the nightstand beside the bed rested one final object Gavin intentionally left behind, the platinum ring Harper found under the bed weeks ago. Alice stared at it for a very long time, then finally picked it up with trembling fingers. Forever begins in Paris. The inscription now felt grotesque, not romantic, just evidence. A souvenir from the exact moment she confused desire for meaning. Outside, rain continued falling over Seattle as evening settled across the empty house. Somewhere above the clouds, a plane carried Gavin and Harper east toward a quieter future neither of them could imagine yet. And alone inside the ruins of her beautiful life, Elise Mercer finally understood the cruelest consequence of betrayal. The people who truly love you rarely stop loving all at once. They stop slowly. After every lie, every excuse, every selfish choice, until one day they look at you without anger anymore, because there is simply nothing left worth saving. Because there is simply nothing left worth saving.